Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free when the Lord shall appear. Yes, we'll walk the miry road. We will walk the miry road. Yes, we will walk the miry road when the Lord shall appear. Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free when the Lord shall appear. How's you be this morning? Ours be tolerably well. I understand you are the committee to review my case. Did you come to hear my story? You sent your soldiers from me. I've been sick for over a month now. And you want to hear my story. Well, before I tell you how it was on the Red Rover and at the hospitals up and down the Mississippi River, I would like to tell you a little bit about how I came out of slavery. When I was a slave down in Tennessee, we heard that the Federals were just north of us. They were part of the Union. Well, the Mrs. Bradford, she heard about it and she had a slave to load the wagon with her provisions. And then she loaded her children up on that wagon. And she left some of the slaves in charge. Well, down at the quarters, the slaves had been talking. They were talking about leaving after Mrs. left. To run would mean that if we get caught, it meant that we would be beat or something worse. We could even get killed. Well, I didn't have any children. I didn't have a man at the time. So I decided, well, I'm gonna run. And we would sing this song. You better run, 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 run. You better run, 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 run. You better run, 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 run to the city of refuge. You better run, Mary, run. You better run, Mary, run. You better run, Mary, run. There's another world better than this one. We decided that we were going to run. And we took off, and as we were running, we would see some of the Rebs, or then we would see over the hill and we would see some of the Federals. And as we ran, there was a general, his name was Bedford Forrest, I'm told. Bedford Forrest would sit on his horse. Yes, he would sit on his horse, and his men were made ready. When we crossed the Cumberland River, and then we made our way on down to the Duck, Forrest had some of his men to sink some of the boats at the mouth of the Duck River. And we told the Federals where the Rebs were. And we kept running. And we made it to this ship, this ironclad. And they let us on board. And some of the men, they would call us all kinds of names as they would see us run. Yes, we would run. But when we got on that boat, the name that they called us was Contraband. A lot of people don't like that name, Contraband. But that was a good name for us. That meant we'd be free. And at least we were starting to our freedom. Well, that ship took us on out, and after a while, it let us out near a place called Paducah. But when that ship got out to the mouth of the Cumberland, it headed south. Didn't they know that we wanted to go north to our freedom? We could tell it was headed south. And it kept on floating down that Ohio River. But it stopped. It stopped at this place called Mound City. And we got off that boat. All we had was the clothing we had on our back. And some of us didn't hardly have that. Yes. When we got off at Mound City, some of the soldiers, they led us to a place where we could get some beans and cornbread. And after we were fed, they told us where we could go get some shelter down on Diamond Street. And Diamond Street, the shelter that we got was some old shanties. There was holes in the top of the roof, and we could see the stars at night. But this was in December of 1862. The ground was wet, and it had a little bit of snow and ice on top. We didn't have nothing. We didn't have nothing. We just had what we had on our back. And that belonged to the masters back down in the South. Yes. Well, January 1st started. And there was all kind of noise all over Mound City, and they were talking about the president had signed a document called the Emancipation Proclamation, which meant that all the slaves from the southern states, which I was from Tennessee, were free. I'd be free. I'd be a free woman. Yes, we felt like celebrating, but the Union wouldn't let our soldiers fight. They wouldn't let us fight for our own freedom. And we had to worry about how to eat. So we heard that there was some nuns not too far from Diamond Street, and if we would go down there, they would help us find some work. We went down to the Sisters of the Holy Cross, and some call them the Sisters of Mercy. They was part of the Sanitary Commission. Well, there was Sister Adele and Callista and St. John's. Oh, these were definitely angels of mercy. They said that there was a ship that was in dock and it was looking for some help. And we decided we would go and see if we could get hired. Well, they hired me. They hired me as a first-class boy. They paid me $8. They promised to pay me $8 a month. That was a lot of money. I've never seen that kind of money in my whole life. Well, Sister Callista and Sister Verancia, they were goodly women, and they taught us how to do our reverses, to learn how to bandage up the soldiers whenever they came aboard. You see, the Red Rover was a ship that had 3 floors. They had 2 restrooms on each floor. They had 2 kitchens, one for the well and one for the sick. Oh, it was the finest thing I'd ever saw. And they taught us how to do our bandages so that we could help and to give the medicine when it was needed. We had to remember everything that they told us. You see, we couldn't read or write. The nuns, they could write down what they said. But we had to learn everything and learn it well and never depend on anything that was written. And we learned our job, I tell you. Yes. We didn't have long to be aboard this ship that was sparkling clean, because they sent us back to Paducah, up the river and around the bend. And there we picked up soldiers that had been injured in that war between Force and Wheeler's army that had got shot. Some of them had their limbs amputated. We took them on board, and the ship was no longer clean. We put cots on the floor. We put men in every cot that there was. We strung hammocks between the posts. And we got them on the ship, and the ship went back to Mount City. And it disembarked and took all those men into the hospital. Well, now it was in February. We took on provisions and medical supplies, and we headed south to go down the Mississippi River. We went up the White River. We put off provisions to the ships that was waiting for them. And the Red Rover parked right there at the mouth of the White. While the soldiers, the Union soldiers, went up to Fort Hindman and they captured Fort Hindman, but when we were about to leave, the Red Rover got shot. And the people didn't get hurt. And that was the only time that the Red Rover had got hit. It was fixed back up. We took on more provisions. And we went up the Red River. We went up the Black. And then a little later in the spring, there was a siege on Vicksburg. On Vicksburg, that lasted a long time. One night, the Red Rover, being 3 stories high, floated right on by Vicksburg to the cover of night and made it all the way down to New Orleans. And we took on provisions again, and we made it back north. You see, the Red Rover could travel the Mississippi back to Mound City in 8 days. But we didn't come all the way back to Mound City then. We got to the mouth of the Yazoo and we parked there. Some of the contraband, the women and the men, they would go into the battlefield and they would put on a soldier that would be between the 2 soldiers, and they would carry them to the different wagons that we had waiting. And the wagons would make it down to the river shore. And they would load those soldiers on the ship. And we would wait there, and the surgeons would work on the soldiers. And some of the soldiers, their legs had to be amputated, or their hand or their arm. But one of the worst things that could happen to the soldier was to get into the water, to get into the Yazoo River. It was black. And you could get dysentery just by getting just a little bit in your body. We had more soldiers dying of sickness than they were of the amputations. Sometimes I remember having the surgeon's medical bag ready. And I would look at the soldier, and I would ask the surgeon to come and check him. And I would ask the surgeon, I said, "Is he dead?" And the surgeon would pronounce him dead. And I would say, "That makes one more bed." When I first started, there would be no way that I could talk to anybody, any surgeon like that, or any nurse. That would be a nun. Yes, the suffering was hard. War is not pretty. Yes. We worked hard. There was sometimes we would run out of quinine pills, and we would have to go into the woods to get medicinal plants like milkweed, ginseng weed that would pull the fever out of you, smart weed that we would boil, and we would wash the soldiers' legs. Sometimes the pus would be just oozing through the bandages, and you would think that a fly is a bad thing. Would you want a fly on your injury, young man? No? A fly is a good thing sometimes. A fly cleans all the pus out of your injury. And we learned that. The soldiers, when I first started, didn't like us Negro nurses. They would talk about us. But when they were sick and they couldn't care for themselves, we became friends. We became like an angel. We went from bed or cot to cot. 1863, July 4th, Vicksburg fell to the Union. When the Red Rover was going back up the Mississippi and stopped down at the hospital Pinckney, some of the men jumped off the ship and swam into Memphis. And you would think that they would have been fine with them going in to get some of the drink. Well, when they got back to the ship, the surgeons had them whooped. And then after they were whooped, they were put into shackles like this. And we had to go down on the bottom floor. We had to feed these young soldiers. And we, being colored nurses, had to give them some soup. Didn't they understand that we wanted our freedom? That we wanted to be able to take care of ourselves? That we wanted our men to be proud of their manhood and that it not be important? I worked my fingers to the bones. I worked until I got so tired. Because if we decided to run, we couldn't turn back. We had to give it our all. And then President Lincoln allowed us to fight for ourselves. That was the day that the tide turned. And they sent you, the soldiers, down to get me. I've been sick for over a month now. We did all that we could for the sick and the injured. We mended the clothes of the soldiers. We fed them. We saw some of the best and the brightest die. And now you ask me, was my service worth it? You ask me? If you want to put me in shackles because I got sick, thank you. It's not over. It's not over. The year being 1903. I remember how it was back in slavery. I remember how it was to be a nurse on the Red Rover and at the Marine Way Hospital. Yes, I remember. I left service October 1864. I had married Gilbert Stokes. He and I lived on a farm up near Belknap, Illinois. And he only lasted 3 years after I left service. He died in 1867. I love my Gilbert. Some of my friends, they decided they were going to help me. They were going to help me get Gilbert's pension. That was in 1880. They started trying to help me. And they sent in a petition so that I can get his pension. They told my story for me because I hadn't learned how to read or write. Yes. Then I married George Bowman. I had one child. I still couldn't read or write. But I decided I've been sick since I left the Navy. I've been sick a long time. And I decided I was going to work and get my pension for myself. So I learned how to read and write. I learned how to fill out that form, and I sent it in. Do you realize that they decided that they were going to review my case because of what I learned? I made my own argument. And in 1890, I was given my pension. And young man, you know how much my pension was? It was $12. I was one of the first nurses to ever get my pension from the Navy. I helped other women to become nurses for the Navy. I know my story may not be important to you, but you must remember, we suffered. We suffered so long. And now, I'm old. I don't know how much longer I got. But I want to share with you. I want to share with you what you can do. I want you to be able to leave here in Southern Illinois, in Illinois' country, father Abraham came from Illinois. And he came to this wilderness. And he taught himself, I'm told, to read and write. He made a difference in my life. And he can make a difference in yours. I know what I've been through. But I want you to take the torch and go ahead. You're able to take the torch and go ahead. Thank you. Some of you may have questions, and I would like to entertain some questions at this time. Are all of you from Southern Illinois? Yes.
So the escaping slaves that made their way to Mountain City?
Yes.
Is that where most of the African American community came from? Is those escaping slaves?
Not necessarily. Some of them came as part let me start over. The contraband was part of the Underground Railroad. There are a lot of the communities that got their start from the contraband community. Mountain City being one, Future City, which is north of Cairo, is another, Villa Ridge is another, that got their start. And during that period of history, the town of Mound City had over 2,000 people working in it. They worked putting the iron around the boats where they got their names, the ironclad or the tin clads. And some of the pig iron came from up in Polk County. So to answer your question, a lot of us, I am descended out of the community. I don't know about other people, but some of the names are still present here in Southern Illinois, Bradford being one, Perkins is another, Warfield is another. Those names actually was in this area during the Civil War, and Butler being another, so my folks came out as contraband. Any more questions?
Are most of the photos from Mound City and Cairo
Where?
on your display?
This one is a painting that I did of the Red Rover. The middle part is my idea of what Ann Stokes would have looked like, and so I put her in the belly of the ship. They had the gauze over the windows to keep the soot off of the soldiers, and actually the Red Rover was a ship that could go into action. They had the mortar, the guns, and everything ready to fight. So some of these are books that relates to that period of history. For instance, Ann worked on a plantation, which is a big farm, and she and they call it the big house. And so I pulled different thoughts that would represent that period of history. And since the contraband was part of the Underground Railroad, I threw a little bit of that in there. Any more?
Thank you.
How old was Miss Stokes when she got her pension, and how does that compare to the pension of white nurses?
When she got her pension, she got $12, which was the same as the white population. She was born, it's estimated around 1830, and she got it in 1890, and I'll leave the math to you. Anybody else?
What happened to the Red Rover after the war?
The Red Rover was dismantled, tore into pieces, and sold for parts in 1865. The Red Rover, another little bit of history that didn't come out, was built in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and it was captured on Island 10. And it was carried to St. Louis to be retrofitted from a side-wheeler steamship to a hospital ship. And she served well all the years that she was involved, from 1862, which she was part of the Army, but in 1863 she became part of the Navy. And she served until 1865. Any more questions? This is your history. It's local history. And it's regional history. Believe it or not, it's United States history. All here in Southern Illinois. The Mound City Marine Way built 3 ships. One was the Cincinnati, the other was the Mound City, and the third was the USS Cairo. And the USS Cairo is located in Vicksburg. And I would suggest going to see her if you have an opportunity. It's worth seeing. It is definitely worth seeing. And if there's no more question. Yes? That's my piece of art or sculpture that I call Ann Stokes. She's a no-face sculpture. And I thought maybe you would like to see her. The black thing that I had on my head is called a wimple. And what the sculpture's got on her head is a wimple. And the apron is made out of cotton, and the dress as well. And it's different pieces of material that I put together to form the sculpture. Anybody else? If that is all. Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free. Yes, we shall be free. When the Lord shall appear.